Okay, so everybody should be seeing my screen now, and I was looking through the attendee list a little bit earlier, and I actually recognized some names in there. About all the attendees, I actually recognize a few names. So anybody that recognizes my voice, my name, welcome, especially to the presentation. I know the Pinnacle Series is brand new to most of you, and it's going to be I'll say relatively new for a lot of you. So I am going to take a deep dive into this, but even if you are somewhat familiar with Pinnacle, you're going to see some brand new things in there that actually were just released even as soon as a week ago. Some exciting new things in here. But let me give you the lay of the land first off. So you're seeing my desktop, and at the center of my screen we have here the Pinnacle Series. So I'm just circling it with my mouse. We're going to be really focusing our attention on this toolbar throughout the entire presentation. Now, if you look at this toolbar, what is this thing? So this thing is the Pinnacle Series. We call it a platform. It gets installed onto the user's machines, and along the bottom of it we have all these different tabs in here. Now these tabs, we refer to them as resources, and these resources are pointed at solving problems around workflows, training, and support. So we're going to go through some examples of how each one of these resources is actually used, but let me give you the name just to kind of start it off there. So we've got, from left to right here, we've got a search engine, we've got workflows, cheat sheets, videos, support and chat, learning paths, and then favorites and history. First thing you got to know right up front is the Pinnacle Series is an all-inclusive subscription. So you're going to get access, and your users are going to get access to all of these various resources in here, and they're going to use them at different times. So let's talk about that now. How do people actually use the Pinnacle Series? Well, the most common way is that somebody's going to be running, a technology like Civil 3D or Revit. I'm going to bounce between a few different examples of Autodesk technology to keep everybody together here because we have architects and engineers on the phone. But they're going to run into this problem, and they're going to want to find an answer very quickly. Well, what does the Pinnacle Series do? It connects people to answers. So first thing that most people will do in here is they're going to search for a few keywords. They're going to search for their problem. It's going to be going through a search engine like we're all accustomed to today. We're all used to things like Google and YouTube, so this is nothing new by any means. But it's going to search through all of the content here within the Pinnacle Series. And you'll see what other kinds of content we have here in a moment. But in my example, I just search on point clouds. And first thing that comes to me anyways is the ability to watch a 54-minute training video on point clouds. Now that's a long video. That's a long video with in-depth training and topics covering point clouds. Just below that we have a quick cheat sheet here on point clouds, and here we have a workflow actually that's going to lay out the best practice of working with point clouds. So what is this? It's a search engine, right? But in a lot of cases, when people are running into searches like that, they know, what, I'm the type of a person, I want to see a video right now. I don't want to go through all the content, I just want to search on the video content. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to break this down real quickly and just search for the videos. Oh, here's a nice 4-minute video, nice and short, talking about creating a point cloud in Civil 3D. Beyond that, and we actually had a question here from a gentleman named Mike, and he asked the question, well, with the Pinnacle here, I recognize the name actually, he knows that you can customize content here in Pinnacle, and we'll talk about that in depth here in a moment. But when it comes to the search engine, what you can also do here is you can rank that the custom content that's built within your firm is actually ranked higher than everything else, and you can see all the custom content versus what we call the public content, which is stock content in there. So you can absolutely narrow those results down right to that custom content and basically group the results by the various types of topics in there. So this is a search engine, right? We all know what a search engine is, what it does. I don't want to belabor that topic. This is the way that people generally interface with the Pinnacle Series as they search through the content to find their answers and find what they're looking for. But let's go through now some examples and make everybody aware of what do I mean by a workflow? What is this thing called cheat sheets? I'm guessing you guys have some ideas in mind what they are. Let's make sure that your ideas and your concepts actually hold true. So let's go to workflows here. All right, we need to cover this concept of public and custom first though, because this is going to carry through the rest of the Pinnacle Series. So we organize our content via a folder structure. At the highest level, we have public and custom. The public content is information, it's materials, it's content that we are building and we're making available to all Pinnacle Series users across the world. And this content is typically about, Autodesk technology. So in this list here, you're going to see things like 3ds Max Design, AutoCAD, BIM 360 Glue. We even go into Bluebeam here, so it's a little bit outside the Autodesk world, but a very common technology used in our industry nowadays. Civil 3D, Dynamo, I don't want to read all of these off to you, but you'll get down here, Revit as well. So, excuse me. We have all this content built into the public folder, and we're making this available to the masses out there. But it's important to know that this custom folder is basically a placeholder for each one of your companies out there. So you have this custom folder where you can leverage the Pinnacle Series as a platform and build in your internal content in here, whether they be best practices or cheat sheets or videos internal to your organization. You can catalog that, capture it right here in the Pinnacle Series, making it searchable, as making it available right next to all the other great content in here. So that's kind of the organization. That's very, very important to know. But now let's go through an example of what I mean by a workflow. I'm going to start in the infrastructure world. Let's go into Civil 3D here, and let's say today my job as a designer, as a civil engineer potentially, is I need to design a simple road, a simple corridor within Civil 3D for my project. Whether it's a residential subdivision, an access road, doesn't really matter in our cases today, but I need to create the simple road design. Well, how would I go about doing that? Well, in a lot of cases, this is what it's going to look like for your end users. They're going to have Civil 3D in the background, or Revit, depending on the topic and the discipline that we're working with. They're going to have Pinnacle Series over on a second monitor somewhere, and they're going to have Civil 3D open here, and they're going to start working through it, right? Well, here it's going to give me, in the Pinnacle Series, the best practice to follow in order to actually create this road design. So it's giving me a workflow to follow through. And it's telling me I need to create alignments, profiles, assemblies, the corridor, and if I break these down deeper, we're now given very detailed step-by-step instructions. Now, I'm going to go through, I'm jumping to an individual step here, but in the real world, I'd be following through this step-by-step. And in this case, it's telling me, okay, I need to define the horizontal alignment from the corridor, or for the corridor from the graphics. And it's given me truly step-by-step text instruction down here. In a lot of cases, we have images in here as well. But you know what? When I'm following this process, in a lot of cases, what people will find is, you know what? I'm a visual learner. I've got to see this thing. I need to experience it. I just can't remember what to do, and maybe this isn't making sense to me for whatever reasons. So right at the right moment in time, we're going to link the user to a video to watch. So we're telling the user, in this case, to view the video on creating alignments from objects. I click that link, it's going to take me right over to the video's resource, and it's going to start playing for me the right video at the right time. So in this case, this is about a 5-minute video teaching me very specifically now where I'm at in my process, in my workflow. It's going to teach me exactly what I need to know. That way there's no hunting and pecking around trying to find the right training material. It's right there at my fingertips as I'm actually going through and doing the work in my project. Now, what most users are going to do is they'll have this on a second monitor. They're going to blow this thing up full screen and kind of watch through this thing side by side, obviously. But I don't want to share two screens on this presentation, so we're going to do this obviously on one screen here. Now, let's say in this scenario, I'm the user, I watched that video, it taught me exactly what I needed to know. It taught me I needed to go to the home ribbon, run the command, create alignment from objects, and walk me through all of those steps. But one thing here to note about the workflows in the Pinnacle Series is the key to these workflows is we want to give the users the access to the right tools to use and the right instructions to use at the right time. So we're really trying to give them a guideline, a best practice to follow so that when they get lost, it's very easy for them to get back on the right workflow. So in this case, we can run links in here from, PDF files, spreadsheets, websites, you name it, we can basically link to it. And additionally, we can even link to Autodesk applications. So I'm in Civil 3D right now. It wouldn't matter, I could be in Revit or Navisworks, but if I click this link, Define Alignment from Graphics, it's actually going to go into the Autodesk application for me and run the right command at the right time. Now, the purpose of that is not to replace the ribbon in Civil 3D or anything like that. The purpose is people get lost. There's thousands of commands out there in the Autodesk world, and it's easy to lose your way and not know where the commands are. So we're giving the users the ability to watch a video, to teach them where it's at, to walk them through those steps, as well as have a hot link integration basically right between Autodesk applications and the Pinnacle series. Now let's take this a little bit of a step further. So far, we're giving the user step-by-step instructions to get their work done. But now we're in this situation where Autodesk, in this case Civil 3D, it's asking me for some inputs. It's asking me for a naming convention. It's asking me for the styles and settings, and if I were in Revit, probably the family to use. So over here in these workflows, we can give kind of recommendations of what to put in here on styles and standards and all that, but everybody's different out there. So that's where the individual organizations that subscribe to Pinnacle, they can make copies of these workflows, put them down here into the custom folder, and then start making changes to them and tweaking them and making them their way of doing work and incorporating their own internal standards right into those workflows. And you can copy our workflow so that you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from a point where it's 90% complete. You just need to add in your standards basically. Now, so far here, we've gone through kind of a very simple example. We started to create an alignment. Let me exit out of that here. And let's bring Pinnacle Series up full screen. And I'm going to go through a little bit more of an advanced topic here. And we're going to skip tunes into the Revit world. So let's say we're working on work sharing in Revit. We got to set up our model. We got to set up our project. And we want to do some work sharing. Here's the process basically to follow to set that up within the Revit world. So if I skip ahead here, we're on task number 4, and we need to set up the central model. But I wanted to show you this one because the content that's in the Pinnacle series goes from very basic level to very advanced level and everywhere in between. When the workflows do get pretty advanced, you'll see that this flowchart is a very nice way to be able to actually visually see what this workflow actually looks like. It can be color-coded based on roles, who's responsible for accomplishing which tasks. You can have decisions in there. Just a nice way to visually experience the workflow versus just doing it through a linear tree-like structure. But if we take a step back now, what is a workflow? These are purely intended to get somebody through a process from A to Z the most efficient, best way possible. They're capturing best practices. Now, let's talk a little bit about how customers are actually using this custom folder, though. So having all this content in the public folder is fantastic. It's a great place to start. But we have some real customers out there actually taking this to the next level. The Pinnacle series truly is a platform that can be built on. So this is a real example of a situation where this company, now it's going to go nameless for right now, but this company had a serious problem, and this was a couple years ago. They were growing so rapidly, they doubled in size very quickly, that it was very much out of control. We had many conversations back and forth. They were a long-time user of the Pinnacle series, but they were basically out of control, growing so fast that they were hiring all these people. They're getting people off the streets into the seats and not really doing a great job of onboarding them. Through some conversations, we said, well, why don't you document the best practice to follow when you're going to onboard a new hire and a manager is going to hire a new person? How do you onboard them? Why don't you document that in Pinnacle series, make that available to managers, and now they have a step-by-step process that they can follow, and it's shared in a very easy system that's searchable here in Pinnacle. That's exactly what they did, and here's the actual skeleton of that workflow. It's called onboarding a new hire, and what they do is, first things first, is they go through introductions. They just simply introduce the new staff to the current staff. Then they go through corporate systems training, which includes benefits training, phone system training, Outlook training. If I skip ahead here, it gets down into job role training, very specific to that job role. And this is just a skeleton, but they had a whole bunch of meat and information behind the scenes in this workflow. And they found a tremendous amount of value on this, getting it documented into this system. But, that has nothing to do with Autodesk technology. And here I am talking about the Pinnacle series, and it's going to be, really helpful with your Autodesk adoption, training, and support. This has nothing to do with that concept at all. This has to do with onboarding. It's HR. Well, it's important to know that the Pinnacle Series can be leveraged as a platform. Now, most people start in Autodesk, in the design teams, in the BIM world, and they start documenting their best practices in that space and in those groups. But slowly it tends to leak out into other areas of the firm where they can document their best practices and make this truly as a corporate platform to build their information into this system. So that's workflows basically. It's this concept of gathering this great knowledge, this great internal way of best practices and getting it into this system right here.